This conference will now be recorded.
Okay.
There you go.
It is now 6:03, and I'm calling the meeting to order. We have a quorum. I'd like to wish everybody a happy St. Patty's Day, Patrick's Day. Dan Casey's got a green microphone, but not a green shirt on.
I know.
Leah, we have in attendance Charlie Agro, Paul Wittenstein, Mark Kelleher, I presume represent all presenters, and Glenn Fernandez, who is a guest.
Got it. Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome. At this time, I would like a motion to accept the minutes of the January 20th, 2021 meeting for approval.
Approved.
Oh, no, we have a motion made and a second. Who's making a motion?
I will make we're waiting. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Is that Kent?
This is Kent.
Second? Who's second?
Joe second.
Joe Johnson. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. No consent agenda that I am aware of. And there is no open forum. Next order is the financial statement. John could present us the revenue for February in comparison to prior year.
Dan, is there any way you can rotate that document?
I tried, not really.
Okay, that's okay.
I can shrink it down a little bit.
No, that's all right.
No, it's not good.
Anyway,
Bring it back to the original, I think. People just have to bend their heads a little bit.
yeah, thank you.
I tried. I can't. It won't let me.
Just to go quickly, if you look at the monthly totals, it would appear that we didn't have a very good February compared to last February. But if you look at really the line item that impacts that the most, it's seasonal dock rental. And that really is mainly a timing issue when we receive renewal payments. So I'm not concerned with the number. I think we're still tracking very well, for the fiscal year. We are getting a large amount of requests for visitor dockage. I think it's, just based upon that, I think it's going to be a very busy year, which is a positive thing. So we just wrapped up the renewals of our moorings. March 15th was the deadline for mooring permits. So, we're tracking along. If there's any questions about anything you see on the report, I'd be happy to answer.
Are there any questions? John, it looks like you're tracking very well. We're running 51,800 above last year to date, so it's good.
Right.
Okay.
Just to put that into perspective a little bit, Mr. Chairman, if I may, last fiscal year really was a record year for us. I think the total was $1,386,000, almost $1.4 million. And if we're on track to exceed that, that's pretty good.
Looks that way. Any other questions or comments? Then move to the next order.
I mean, no. I just think that the harbor is huge. I mean, for what you did, John, and then the town, and it's only going to grow. I really think. It's going to be a destination. So that's great.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Good. Okay.
Hey,
next order. Who's
Mr.
that?
Chairman, this is Glenn. I just wanted to let you know I'm here. I tried to turn my microphone on and it kicked me out of the meeting, so I just got back. But I'm just here to listen.
That's fine. Your microphone is off on the screen, so I don't know whether
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on, but
we
Well,
can
no,
hear you. I can hear you.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
working in the
hold on,
shop,
'cause we
so
can
I'm gonna
hear.
turn it back off, and I'll be here.
Okay,
Thank you.
welcome. Welcome. Next order of business. Proposed maintenance dredging and additional fender pile at 16 Harbor Road, in parentheses Manning, I presume that's the owner, and Coastal Engineering is going to make the presentation. Is that Charlie Agro?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening and happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. I'm here on behalf of the applicants, the Mannings, and proposed project is, as the chairman described, is proposed maintenance dredging and a new fender pile and installation of 2 dolphin piles off of the original fender pile and the new proposed fender pile. The area where we're proposing maintenance dredging was previously permitted as improvement dredging off of the existing dredge area within Witchmere Harbor. So essentially, we're looking to re-permit the area as maintenance dredging, as the original dredge permits are about to expire. And if you scroll down to the plan, please.
Projected. There?
I don't think that's,
The next page now, please.
that's not, is that the plan?
This is the plan here. And then if you wouldn't mind just zooming out a little.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So
Yeah,
the
that's it.
proposed dredge footprint is the exact same footprint that was previously permitted, with a 3-to-1 side slope to the existing grade. And if you zoom in a little bit on the southwestern corner, that's the location where the new fender pile is being proposed. And the
like
fender
here?
just a little bit down from there. So just to the left, there you go. Yeah, if you could zoom in on that area right there, that'd be great. Great, thank you. And in this location here, we're looking to install another fender pile, 12-inch diameter timber pile to match what's currently there. And we're also looking to add dolphin piles or battered piles off of both of the piles just for some additional support. The piles are proposed within the area that was previously dredged. So this is an area that's been previously altered in the past. Before dredging and before the piles are installed, we can instruct the contractor to install a silt boom around the area to reduce any increases to turbidity in the adjacent areas. All other best management practices would be upheld as well. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions from any of the members? If not, then I'm going to ask for the opinion of our harbor master and the natural resource officers as to what their position is on this motion.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions. What's the length of the float currently that's in place there?
I believe the main float, the biggest one, is 8 by 30 feet, and then the one off to the side of it is 8 by 20 feet.
And then what's the distance of the pile, the existing pile that you have?
That's about
Off of the float. So
it's about 10 feet or so. It's kind of hard to see on the scale of the plan, but it looks like it's about 10 feet off of the float, the corner of that float.
So
And the
go ahead.
Well, the floats aren't currently in place right now. They're temporarily removed for the season. So if you look at it from the site right now, it looks like the only thing that's in is the fixed pier, which is the center shape. It looks like a hockey stick. That's the only thing that's in there right now.
Yeah, no, me and Heinz did a site visit. I know you couldn't make it, and I appreciate you setting the float there in the position of the new pile. My question is, why do you need this second pile?
Just for some additional support. I was informed from the captain that the existing dolphin pile, he sees it move a lot as he's docking, and when the wind's blowing out of the north there, it pushes the boat up on it pretty good, and he's concerned that the existing, the single pile isn't quite enough to hold that boat in place and secure it, which is why we're proposing the batter pile to further support that individual pile, and then another dolphin pile out about another 10-15 feet off to the southeast from it.
Okay. Well, I guess my position is I don't have any concerns with the maintenance dredging. Sounds like you've had it permitted before. You're not expanding the footprint. I don't think you're looking to renew the exact same footprint that you've had in the past. I'll let Heinz speak more to that from his perspective. I don't have real concern with putting a batter pile on the existing pile to strengthen that. But I do have some concern with just continuing to expand the footprint of the amount of space that is available to the public within the harbor. You know, you're going to now put another pile, or you're proposing to put another pile in, which will may not have a navigational hazard issue, but it just takes up more space within the harbor. So, I mean, you have an awful lot of float space there. Not you, but the owner. Obviously, he got it permitted, but it well exceeds the 200 feet that is allowed by our current bylaw. So I'm okay with strengthening the existing pile, but I'm not in favor of adding another two piles. One, you know, an additional pile plus the batter pile.
So,
Heinz, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, hello, it's Heinz. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So as natural resources, what comes under kind of my advisement role would be eelgrass that could be disturbed. That doesn't matter in this situation. Blockage of any fish passage, that doesn't come into play here. It is, however, in a shell fishing area, which is the entire Wychmere Harbor. And although natural resources doesn't approve nor deny an applicant, that idea of being a shell fishing area is something that conservation will certainly look at and possibly ask for some mitigation. But, you know, piling that far out is going to be in some soft sediment as it is. John kind of alluded to it. You know, as it moves a little bit towards, I guess it would be westward, there's another home there that is in between this applicant and Stonehorse Yacht Club. I think the distance of the proposed pile is certainly far enough. I think 60 or 65 feet from Stonehorse, but I don't know if that next property over would have a concern. And technically putting in a piling into substrate removes, even though it's a small amount in my mind, it's something conservation is going to look at and say, well, that's lost area at the, you know, where that piling is. And John also made a good comment, and I don't know how initially the amount of dock floatage square footage exceeded that the bylaw, unless it was pre-bylaw, but that's looking at the docks stacked up there and trying to envision its layout, seems quite extensive. It's more of an opinion. It's not really a decision. It's just something that caught me a little bit hard considering what else is in Witchmere and in other areas in the town of Harwich. So as natural resources, I wouldn't support it, but I'm not opposed to it either. It's just kind of neutral. Like, I understand his request and I understand its impact possibly to that environment there, and conservation will certainly address it. Thank you.
Thank you, Heinz. Members of the committee, any comments? And how do you want to address the concerns that the harbor master has? Okay, Dan.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, community organizer says here, that's why.
Yeah, CO. I get it. So CO, all right. So what are you adding floats? You're muted. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. We're not proposing to change the float configuration at all. We're just proposing the maintenance dredging and then the piles.
So this hockey stick and then the other U-shaped dock float, that's existing?
That's correct. That's existing, and it's currently licensed with a valid Chapter 91 license.
So you're not adding anything. You're just trying to shore things up a little bit better.
That's correct, and that was our intention too. With the additional dolphin pile we're proposing, that's why I figured we propose it in an area that was previously dredged. So it's an area that has been altered in the past. It's not a new virgin untouched area of seafloor, and it is also 35 feet off of the property line. And we could also propose to move it a little bit closer to the north and to the east as well, to keep impact closer to our area that already is impacted with the existing floats. And in this area too, there's a large vessel that uses this docking system. And then of course to the west, there's Stone Horse Yacht Club. So this isn't necessarily an area where there's already any room for public navigation aside from the people that use Stone Horse Yacht Club. And this proposal won't alter their ability to use the yacht club.
Yeah, I mean, that was my only thing. I just want to make sure that you weren't, there's no more bigger dockage or floats being proposed. So, I mean, what other concerns do we have, John, other than?
Well, he is adding piles. He's adding piles that aren't there. So to say nothing is being added is not accurate.
Okay.
I have a question.
Question. So help me out.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Looking at this, I'm saying obtained a sediment. I got. Help me out here.
Dan, are you talking to me? I don't want to.
Anybody.
Charlie, you want to give it a shot first? And
I'm sorry, what was the question? I couldn't hear it.
Well, looking at the plan, so I have in the lower left, I have existing dolphin pile, and you got a proposed removal of that dolphin pile. But what's up top? What's that circle that says sediment samples to be obtained? Is that another pile you're putting in? Is that exactly what I'm seeing?
No, that's just where we're going to take a core sediment sample to determine what the sediment characteristics are before dredging. We're out there doing some sediment sampling for the town-wide dredging right now. We'll probably have a chance to take those next few days.
So essentially, you're looking at moving the existing dolphin pile X amount of feet to the. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the plan. I can't do northeast west, but to the left.
So the existing dolphin pile, we're proposing to leave that in place as is and to shore it up with a batter pile. And then we're proposing to add another dolphin pile and batter pile 10 feet to the left and downward from the existing pile. So we're proposing to add 3 new piles. Timber piles to match the existing pile that's there and the existing dock piles.
But my original question is that the floats and that configuration of the floats are existing and they're not being added on?
That's correct. Yes, we're not adding any square footage of floats. The only thing we're proposing to add are 3 piles.
Okay. All right, Dan, you had a question?
Yes, Dan Casey.
Tom, this could be directed to John or the engineer. What is the purpose or intent of a dolphin pile?
To secure the boat in place.
So you have that much of an overhang on that float?
I guess so, yeah. It's a 65-foot vessel that ties up there, and we've got about 50 feet of float frontage. So it does stick over the front a little bit.
Yeah, so just you guys understand, you know, the dolphin pile is straight up and down, and then the batter pile is driven in at an angle, essentially to support the vertical dolphin pile.
Hey, you got a 65-foot boat going into Richmond. I mean, all right.
I have one question. This
Joe,
is
is
Ken.
that you?
Oh, this is Kent. I know
Kent,
we look
yeah.
alike and sound alike.
Sounded like.
I would just wonder through the engineer, John, like to know what, if, is there another alternative? Is there another option besides adding? What about replacing?
Yeah.
Why are we adding something that could be replaced? We're shoring something up. Shouldn't it just be replaced? What's already there?
Yeah, well, the existing dolphin pile, I guess, could get replaced with either a larger pile. The proposed batter pile is something that's typically done to shore it up. But I guess a larger diameter, deeper embedded pile would do the trick, or could do the trick. I think when you have, again, the wind blowing out of the north, that boat gets pushed up against the dock. I haven't personally seen it, but I was instructed by the owner's boat captain that that dock there, that pile moves around, really wiggles a lot as the boat's pushing up against it. So I don't know if that's
the dock's inferior for the size of the boat.
I don't know about the dock, but the pile itself is definitely moving.
So let's put a bigger pile. Let's put a bigger pile in. I mean, I'm not in favor of adding another whole nother
system. Yeah. What is John? What do you think? Is that an alternative better?
It's much better. It keeps the same footprint that they currently have permitted, and I'm not trying to change that. I just don't want to add to it and take up more waterway space.
I mean, listen, I mean, we've all been into Richmond Harbor. I mean, you drive through there in a 20-foot boat, you can barely get through there. They got a 65-foot, and you're going to add another pile just to support that. I mean, who knows if they're going to go to a 75-foot?
You can't.
You know? Well, I'm just saying, like, yeah, just replace what you got. That's all I'm saying. I mean, it just seems excessive. It seems excessive in my point of view, really.
It opens the door for something else.
You can't get through there as is. I can't even imagine bringing a boat like that in through there. Never mind. Yeah.
You keep a 80-something foot sport fisher over in front of the Wishmere Beach Club there. I mean, I'm glad I don't have to drive the boat. That's for sure. But
right. But I mean, it's enlarge what you got, you know.
Or repair what you got.
Don't add on and
replace.
Don't add on and don't put a Band-Aid on what you got and then add on another place. There's no room. There's no place.
Well, proposing a batter pile isn't necessarily a Band-Aid on that dolphin pile. We can take a look at either what's more efficient, whether it's installing a new timber pile, a bigger diameter, deeper embedded dolphin pile in place of the existing one, or if it makes more sense. At that rate, you're installing if we remove the proposed dolphin pile in the southwestern corner just below the sediment sample icon there. And then we're only installing one new pile. Installing one new batter pile is less of a disturbance than removing an existing pile and replacing it with the new larger pile.
I didn't understand that. You're saying to add another one instead of just replacing the two that we're talking about?
So if we remove, if we no longer propose the dolphin pile, the new dolphin, so right now there's one dolphin pile and we're proposing another one. If we remove that proposed pile and just stick with the existing pile by bracing it with the new battered pile of a similar diameter, rather than removing the existing pile and replacing it with a bigger one, that would be less disturbance of the area. Just so I guess that's one thing to consider as well if we, when it comes to replacing it with a larger diameter pile or replacing it with a, or reshoring it with a new batter pile.
And I would support that. I mean, I think that makes sense. So you're just adding a batter pile on the backside of the existing dolphin and nothing else.
That's correct, yeah.
So what condition is the existing dolphin pile in? I mean, how old is it? What's the existing condition of it?
That's a good question. I haven't looked at it below the water line. I can look up the license date for when that was installed. I think it was installed maybe 15 or so years ago. I mean, just from
and how long do those last? I mean, how long do those last? Because I mean, you don't want to shore it up and then 5 years later or 2 years later be like, oh, now it's starting to fail. Now we got to do something with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because if you gotta do anything to it, might as well do it now, you know?
John, what do you think of that? Is that
I think either alternative from my perspective, and again, Heinz may have a different perspective thinking of the bottom, but I think if from what I'm considering, the use of the waterway, staying within the existing footprint of what they have is what I want, and adding a batter pile on the backside of the existing dolphin pile or replacing it with a new stronger pile, either one doesn't grow the footprint of what they have there.
I just don't know why adding a piling behind it is less disturbing than replacing. I mean, both ways you got to do the same amount of disturbance.
I mean, either option.
Along the water. Yep.
Either option, I think, would be fine.
I would just enlarge the damn pile. I mean, make it thick. If it's shaking or moving now, just enlarge it and be done with it.
I mean, to me, if you ask me my opinion, I think that's an engineering decision based upon their calculations and what can be done to provide the strength that they're looking for within the existing footprint.
I think the advice we'd give them is look at both options, consider both options, and if they determine that adding a support piling for whatever reason makes more sense, then they can propose it that way, but knowing that we're going to more strictly stick to replacing it. You'd have to come with a good reason why you can't replace it.
All right, from what I hear then, the consensus is to table this until further information is obtained.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I think they'd be best to do that. Yep.
Yeah, I think we need to know how much larger they need to go and what the age of the existing pile is. Was if any maintenance needs to be done to the existing pile? You know, how long will that be held out? So yeah.
Well, I would say that the applicant needs to either, not move forward with this and come back with a revised plan, or if they want to proceed and go forward in front of the Conservation Commission, they certainly have that right, and we should make known what our position is.
All right, well, I appreciate the discussion, everyone. And I guess one question I have, just to keep things moving here, if we were to revise the proposal by removing the proposed dolphin pile and battered pile, so that's 2 of the proposed piles, and just stick with either replacing the existing pile or reshoring it with the new battered pile if we determine that the existing pile is in good shape. If we submitted a letter and a revised plan just stating which option we go forward with, would that be enough to get an approval without having to go through another waterways meeting, or would you guys like me to come to another waterways meeting to discuss it again?
What is your pleasure?
No, I think you'd have to come before the meeting, the committee again, but to get, if you want our approval.
All right, that's fine.
I mean, that's kind of where we're leading, is that we don't want to add more piles and this and that. I mean, either you go with the bigger diameter of what you got, or embrace it. And if it's got good life, I think we would all accept that, correct or no?
And I agree. That's what I'm planning to do. I was just wondering if I could submit that as a plan change and a letter, and then keep going with the permitting process here, or if you'd recommend that I come to next month's meeting.
I mean, that's up to John. I think you would want to come before us to get our approval, but that's up to me. I mean, that's not up to me.
Yeah, you couldn't support it. We couldn't support it without seeing it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't understand how we could vote on something without having the final proposal before us. Unless other members feel differently.
No.
I would agree, Mr. Chairman. I think we stick with, past practices, and every time we have an applicant who needs to make change or wants to make change, we require them to come back. So I would agree with that.
All right, then I will entertain a motion to table this request until a revised plan is submitted or a decision for how it's going to approach is considered. Is there a second? First and second. I can't make the motion.
I'll first it. The organizer will first it, and we need a second.
I'll second. Kent,
okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to table, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Motion is carried. I'm sorry, Charlie Agro, but as soon as you can get it back to us, put it on the agenda.
All right, thank you guys very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Okay. The next order of business is Kelper Farms. And is that going to be presented by Paul Wittenstein?
It's going to be presented by Mark Kelleher and then Paul Wittenstein.
Both of you, okay.
John, can I share my proposal? Hang on. It's up, Mark. Is it up? Okay. All right. My name is Mark Kelleher. I have a partnership with Paul. Do you want to introduce yourself, Paul?
Sure, yeah. Paul Wittenstein. I'm the general manager of Aquaculture Research Corporation. But I'm here representing myself as a Harwich citizen and as a co-owner of Kelper Farms.
Okay, and I'm just going to give an overview of what I've submitted previously, who, what, when, and where. Paul and I are proposing to use our existing kelp permit to try an experimental run of one one line of 200 feet of long line that we normally would use for kelp for bay scallops. You know, the reason we're proposing this is that the Conservation, DMF, and the ACOE basically have said that the existing permit we have for the kelp can be modified without going through the whole permit process again. It is going to be one line of 200 to 300 feet. We're looking at putting in 15 lantern bags, and I'm going to show you an example of what this looks like. Excuse me just for a sec. Okay, we're going to put in one line, long line, 8 feet.
Lost you. We've lost the speaker.
You there, Mark?
Now yes. Mark, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, I'm sorry. It was that woman coming in on us. But you know, there's the lantern bags. The long line is 8 feet below the surface. The spawn is going to be done by ARC Company, which will be done in late August, and so that's what the system looks like. Hang on just for a second. Where we are is, if you can see my asterisk, we're about 0.8 of a mile off Pleasant Street Beach. And right where you see my asterisk here, is that where we are? It's about 0.5 acres. We're in the same area as a lot of conch traps, so there's lots of buoys out there with conch lines. We're about a half mile away from the weirs. Paul has done a little travel thing of, excuse me, I'm sorry. This is our install right here. We're off a lot of the transit lines out of Herring River. In other words, boats that leave Herring River, usually if they're going east, have already made their turn before they reach us. If they're going to Nantucket, we're to the east of them, and if they're heading west, we're not there. So we're off any of the heavy travel lines out of Herring River. When we will install this in early September, the spawn will be in late August, early September. There's a lot of growth with bay scallops in September through November. In November, we will thin out the lantern bags and perhaps add another third to a half for growth. Harvest would be in the fall of 2021, and that's the thing that's different. We would.
All right, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, no problem. We would keep the lantern bags in over the summer of 2022. So that's kind of an issue that I want to make plain to everybody. And the final thing is, why are we doing this? And we believe that this could be an economic development possibility. In Long Island, Cornell University and the Peconic Bay has increased their landings of bay scallops by 1,000%. I mean, the bay scallops were actually wiped out from a brown tide in the late 80s. The other thing is that the wild fishery, there is a lot of eelgrass southwest of where we would be. When the bay scallops spawn, when the temperature hits about 68 degrees, there's a possibility that some of the wild scallops will be affected. And just as a sideline, Brent Hemian has told me that 15 or 20 years ago, he hauled in hundreds of bushels of bay scallops from this approximate area. So, and the next thing I'd like to do is introduce Paul. Paul has done a survey of all the aquaculture areas on the Cape, and he's just going to tell you how other towns have dealt with this. So if you want to take it away, Paul, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, Mark's giving you the basic overview, and what I just want to point out, I suppose, is that aquaculture is happening in most towns in the area without any major conflicts. There's no exclusivity of use. Boaters are able to transport themselves through the area without any issues. There's no impeding on commercial fisheries or recreational fisheries or sightseeing or anything like that. I don't know if let's see if I'm able to share my screen here.
If not, Paul, I can put it on. So
Let's see, I think I can. Yeah, there we go. What I've got here is all the purple areas are.
Hey, can everybody see that?
Yeah. Yes.
Anything that's highlighted in purple here is aquaculture zone around the Cape as it is. You've got up here, you've got a rather large one with 50 leases that are shared between Provincetown and Truro. That it's all up there. It's all floating gear in the summer. And then you've got obviously Wellfleet is a huge area. Large portions of their harbor are used. Down in Barnstable, in the backside of their marsh area, you've got a large aquaculture area. And then more of the same style that we're looking at, but not the same size scale, is over towards Buzzards Bay and Falmouth, where you've got quite a few offshore large areas that are operating or have been operating for a long time without any known conflicts. So what we're proposing is much smaller on scale than any of the other areas for now. And yeah, I guess that's what I can say. I don't know if I want to turn it over to questions or if you want to add anything, Mark.
Just one thing, Chatham out to the west side. Yeah, to the west side of Stage Harbor it's permitted up to 40 acres. They have about 20 acres of kelp growing there now, and they leave their anchors in year round. The end buoys of the long lines, and they haven't had any navigational issues at all to speak of. So that's basically it. So just to close before we start questions, I'd like to emphasize this is experimental. We don't know if it's going to work, so we're going very small. But the two of us are trying to see if we can develop some aquaculture in Chatham. I have a kelp area. We have a kelp area off of in that same area. I mean, we've not had great growth. We think we're outside the stream of nutrients from the Herring River. The nutrients head west. But this is just an opportunity that we think is worth a try to see if we can develop some aquaculture industry in Harwich. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
I have a question. Is this in addition to the kelp line that's already there?
What we're going to do is the kelp line, we will use the existing kelp line. We're not going to add anything. We're permitted for 2 kelp lines. Right this year, we just have 1 kelp line. The kelp, based on past performance, I'd prefer to try the bay scallops. I think we have more potential with success with the bay scallops rather than the kelp.
Okay. Other questions from members?
Well, what does Heinz and John have to say?
That was my next question. Yeah. We'll refer to our harbor master and our natural resources for their opinion. John and Heinz.
Heinz, go ahead. I'll go after you.
Hello, it's Heinz. So more some comments, I guess, and maybe a question. So as far as I know, the kelp line that was initially put in, Mark, I think it's been moved once, I think. Is that correct? It's been moved one time already. Is that correct?
I moved it in closer to Herring River to see if I could pick up some more nutrients. Yeah, so it did move once. It moved about 0.2 of a mile, 1/10 of a mile, not much.
Okay. So in terms of that aquaculture project, I mean, the town, was able to work something out there. The town is accepting of aquaculture projects if they can work with, all the entities involved. We have ARC, that company now running an upweller at the mouth of Herring River. That worked out really well for the town. The town runs its own shellfish lab at Witchmere Harbor. There's a privately run aquaculture facility at Allen Harbor, but it's, you know, land-based as well. They're just using the water. The kelp line that's being described, the town, and we're still within the first year. If you can correct me, go ahead, Mark. But there's already, you know, under the natural resources permit that I have, I think it's 5 bags of scallops that you're currently deployed right now. Is that correct?
We have 3 bags of bay scallops out there right now.
Okay, and I think that was kind of our at least sense of, you know, growth and survival. We have yet to even complete 1 year of that, and so I was kind of curious, you know, as to what that produces. And I know that those shellfish I think are going to just be deposited right there in Herring River, but if this expansion takes place, then those scallops, they'll just end up in a different venue or avenue. But you mentioned weir traps, and you're correct. Those are also only seasonal. Those are hauled out, I don't know if June 10th is the exact date, but certainly before any kind of greater boating activity takes place. So comparing it to something like that is a little strange because those are removed totally and completely. So those are just some comments I had of, you know, that first year complete pilot proposal of those scallops, you know, what we're going to get for survival and growth there. And then that the town has been accommodating with the initial kelp proposal, moving the kelp line, and then addressing and not allowing, but putting those few bags under the town's permit because it was small in scale, those 3 that you described, but that would not, if this were to go forward, be covered under the natural resources permit in any way because it's much broader in scope. Thank you.
Yeah.
John, do you have any comments, John? Oh, John, your microphone's off. Oh,
Yeah, that's fine. I thought Mark was following up with Heinz.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mark, did you have
just one quick thing. Heinz is correct. If we were to do this, according to the DMF, we would have to have the selectmen's approval on this. So that's why we're going through the process of waterways conservation all the way up to the selectmen.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thanks. I have a few comments here. I don't see any existing, I mean, Paul did a nice job showing some of the areas where aquaculture is currently happening, but a lot of that is not offshore. At least I don't see any in Nantucket Sound. The one that you referred to in Chatham is seasonal in nature. They pull everything out except for 2 markers that mark the end of their area, their blinds or whatever you want to call it. They don't, you know, they are seasonal in nature. And I think aquaculture is great in certain areas that allow for it. And, you know, having a set right outside the mouth of the Herring River, I do think, well, one, I think, you know, we need to approach this, I think, in a coordinated effort. Because there needs to be some plan. We can't just have, you know, different aquaculture areas throughout Nantucket Sound, or at least off of Harwich. I'm speaking just of Harwich here. You know, I mean, we don't currently have any grants or leases in place for this. And, you know, my concern is, if this goes in, what are we going to do with the next request that comes in? And I've been very clear with Mark. I supported the kelp project, and in the off season, I don't think it becomes an issue, but in the height of the boating season, I think it does. And you know, just setting aside a swath of water for this project, I'm not in support of. I think we need to do some work. We, meaning the town and myself and Heinz and conservation agent and others working with Mark and interested parties on trying to find an appropriate spot, if there is one. But I just think leaving a whole set in the busy waterway, and it is busy where you're proposing. People are coming and going out of Heron River all the time, commercial boats during the summer season, and so I just think it needs more thought and more work.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, it's Heinz.
Yes, Heinz.
There was, when I started in the town in 1998, and Tom Leach was our natural resources director at the time, and we were running the town shellfish lab, we had a discussion where we looked throughout the town as to possible, grants or aquaculture possibilities, because there are towns, I didn't see the map with the purple circles, but these areas off of Dennis and Wellfleet and Truro where there's expansive space where people can work in an area. We attempted to try to, what was kind of just discussed too, is like, where in the town could we have something like that? And because the nature of Harwich's shoreline and embayments, whether it be Round Cove and Pleasant Bay, Allen Harbor, Witchmere, Herring River, it's not contiguous. So there aren't big areas like that. When we have 400 recreational shellfish permits, we only have a few commercial permits, and they will harvest shellfish in Herring River. That to designate, even a quarter of an acre somewhere along a shoreline was very difficult. So we didn't see that as an avenue. Now, brought up the idea of, if someone was willing to go, far offshore and deep underwater and keep it, well beneath the surface, that could be an avenue, but it just didn't really get any attention or pick up any takers in that sense. Now, in the last few years, more people have addressed the town of Harwich or come to me, in a casual conversation, where possibly could something like that take place. And I haven't seen one that's quite big in size. There's north of the bridge of 28 in Herring River, where there's a little bit of an area that someone could have tried. And, deep water offshore is a possibility. But, land-based is where Harwich has seen some success. But I think, as John just described, and, Amy's well aware of this too, Amy Zowski, our conservator, if we tried to look at something, we're looking at its entire effect of discussing something like that, and where we can, try to reinvent the wheel and look again with a fine-tooth comb, where there might be little pieces here and there, but I don't think there's anything large in scale. That's why it hasn't happened up till now. Thanks.
Members of the committee, any comments or additional questions? Dan?
I have one. Nope. Go ahead.
You're off. Your mic is off.
I had one. This is Kent.
Okay, Kent.
The areas that they showed on that map that were purple, those are designated areas, I assume, right? I mean, somebody identified those areas and marked them. And Harwich doesn't have any areas that are identified.
Those purple areas, I'm sorry, they're current aquaculture leases. They're not like identified or speculative areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're just active areas. Okay.
Yes.
So they're not. There's not some area that was designated. Then they sell the leases for that area.
That is the approach.
So I don't know. Is that?
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right,
I was gonna say, that is kind of the approach that some towns have taken, like Wellfleet and Brewster and Barnstable. Did kind of like what Heinz and John alluded to, which is, getting the whole town together, picking a big area and divvying it up amongst people who are interested. That is one approach that has been taken. And some of those larger purple areas are conglomerations of smaller grants that were set up that way.
And Harwich hasn't done that yet. I mean, the town of Harwich.
Heinz, John,
No.
Harwich has not done that.
Oh, yeah, it's Heinz again. The answer is we haven't done it because we're not able to. We're not able to look at a body of water or an embayment or one of our shell fishing areas that's recreationally in nature and say, okay, well, we're going to exclude it to everyone except one. You know, it just didn't have the space for that. From a commercial operations perspective, they don't want something that's, 10 by 10 square feet or anything like that. They want something large, something that's, time and effort. And unless it's, deep water and beneath the surface, Harwich, I don't see how. I mean, I'm willing to have those discussions with this board or subcommittee or anybody else that is interested in looking at the town's shorelines and embayments. And I'm sure this isn't Mark's first look at where something like this could be operational, and he's looking at possibly off his kelp line. But yeah, other than land-based, there hasn't been anything that's been looked at or approved or designated. Thanks.
If I may, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Who's that? Paul?
Well, Mark Kelleher.
Okay.
A template, and this is not what we're asking right now. A template could be Provincetown. They're right offshore. They're in deep water. The 50 acres, and it seems to have worked out. What we're asking for is experimental. We don't know if this is going to work. We're asking for one 200-foot line. You'll have a buoy at either end and flotation buoys in between. It's really no different than what you see out there with conch lines. And we're just asking for the opportunity to try it for 1 year and see if it works. If it works, of course, then we run into all the issues of where and other people getting involved. We're kind of the pathfinders here. We've worked the kelp for the last couple of years. I don't think because of nutrient issues and things like that, that is a viable thing in Harwich. But the bay scallops could be, especially as Brent Hemian said, there is a history of success. But we're just looking for 150, 200-foot line. The footprint wouldn't be any more different than what is out there now with conch lines, and to see how it works. I mean, this time next year, roughly, or year and a half, we may say we didn't get it and we're done, and then it, we'll maybe try one other thing. But we're trying to find out what works, and if it does, then we'll come back to you and say, yeah, it worked, and we want to expand. So again, this is experimental. It's very small, 200-foot line. It's about it's off the transit lines from Herring River. I mean, I'm out there every 2 weeks. Well, of course, this time of year, it's not an issue, but even during the summer, the boats dissipate by the time they get out where we are. So I'd like you to consider that. We're trying to see if something works. And if it does, that would be a great thing for the town.
The way I look at this proposal, it says 250-foot lengths.
Yeah, and I've changed that because I don't want to have, at least initially, to have two parallel lines to cause more of a navigational hazard. One line, almost like a conch line, and that will give us enough information to see if it works.
So you modified your request to one 200-foot line.
Exactly, and I'm sorry I didn't say that up front, but in hindsight and looking at it, the 200-foot line would give us enough information to have enough bags on there to see if it works. We don't need to have the two lines, and we can go 200 feet, 250 feet without adding anchors, and that would give us enough data to see if it works and to work out the mechanics of how we lift up the lantern bags. We may have to pressure wash them. There's a whole bunch of things that we would need to learn, and we need to have a certain mass to see how to do it.
Any other questions or comments from the committee members? Dan Hall?
So, I mean, for kelp, just correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know much about kelp, but your existing lines, you would use X amount of months out of the year and then haul those lines, and then you still have your buoys. Is that right?
In the past, we have the kelp lines. We pull all the equipment out in May. So what we're asking for now is we'll put one kelp line, and we may even pull the equipment out this spring in any case. But what we're asking for is in September, we would put in one kelp line, 200 feet, 250 feet, anchors at either end with end buoys and maybe two or three flotation buoys in between. And the issue is that would stay in through the following year's boating season. So we'd have from May through September, we would have a 200-foot long line, which is 8 feet below the surface, with two end buoys and 2 or 3 flotation buoys in between them.
Okay.
And we probably will not do the kelp next year. This is our focus. The kelp has not, quite honestly, I mean, we're still waiting to see if there's going to be a bloom of growth. There is a bloom of growth in April and May, but I'm not optimistic that that's going to work out economically.
I mean, so John, my question to you is that, so if things work or don't work and they come back to us, if things work out, then we address that then. I mean, is that a problem? Is it a big problem that the equipment stays in? The existing line stays in for the season? I mean, height of the boating season? I mean, it's 8 feet below the line. I mean, you got boats coming out of Herring River. They're not big boats.
One at a time. Good. John?
Are you done, Dan?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so again, I think there's several issues that I thought I covered. This is the first I've heard that now they've reduced it to one line, so that's news to me. But I think it's, I'm looking at kind of down the road, how as Heinz talked about, they've looked at this issue for a long time, and there's a lot of towns that have embayments and interior spaces where boating traffic isn't the issue, and they can allocate that space for aquaculture. Every town is different, and we don't have that in Harwich, and at least we haven't found it yet, other than going offshore in deep water. And so is one line as a test? I guess I could probably support that, but it's what then? All right, because I don't see, and Heinz has been here a long time, and he made mention, they've looked at this long and hard. I just don't see that there's going to be that big area that we're willing to set aside, to make it profitable for, say they have success with this one line, they're going to want a bigger space, and I just don't see it. So that's where I'm at.
Dan.
It's Heinz again. I was going to ask Marco real quick about the current 3 bags of scallops that they're kind of looking at and testing. When were they started? What step are we in, and when does it reach its kind of like first full year cycle? I don't know all those exact dates, but I don't think we've quite reached that yet.
Well, yeah.
Mark and Paul.
Yeah, those
Paul, do you want to handle?
Yeah, those scallops
Paul.
were put out last fall. So I suppose that we'd have a pretty clear picture of how that was working by the time this September's scallops would come out of the hatchery. I think what we're really trying to determine with this project, with enlarging that 3-bag project to this 200-foot line, is the feasibility of growing a long line of scallops and kind of offshore, to see if that perhaps that area that is offshore that Heinz and Tom, didn't find the first go around looking for areas might be that offshore thing.
Good.
But to shortly answer Heinz's question, this coming summer we will have a pretty good picture of how those 3 bags did.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Heinz, you done? Oh, any other comments or questions?
Well, Yeah.
All right, Dan.
So
Commuter-
yeah,
commuter
I'm along the same lines as John. Is that all right? So you go ahead and do this, and if it's successful, well then, you know, if it's already kind of determined that the town of Harwich doesn't have a place for this, then what do we do with it? You know, I mean, I appreciate what you guys are trying to do, but I mean, if it's successful, then it's fine, but then we're going to discuss where that's going to be placed. And if we already know where it can't be placed and it has no place in Harwich, then what the hell are we talking about?
Well, I guess to answer that, I mean, if I may,
yeah,
Yes.
sure. I'm just trying to play. I'm just trying to.
No,
You know,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm trying to.
I mean,
I don't know.
I think that discussion, if it was successful, the discussion that would open up is where in Harwich is it possible that perhaps hasn't been looked at? Like John and Heinz kind of said, you know, we don't have any small embayments, we don't have any real tidal flats, but we do have many thousands of acres of open sound, and if this were to work, then perhaps we could look at something further offshore that's like, you know.
Well, then,
sure, yeah.
If we could keep, I mean, I don't know. I mean, then I would personally propose that if you guys want to do that, that's great. And if we could keep it to that containment, I don't see much of a problem with that. Does anyone else? I mean, if it could be contained to just quasi this experiment, and then it has to fully be looked at later on, is that a problem, John? I mean, I don't know.
Well, you know, I guess my suggestion might be, why don't you look going a little further offshore with your one line of 200 feet now instead of in the location that you're looking at, because I would absolutely not support having a big acreage of aquaculture near the shoreline where everybody's boating. So if you think if it's success, then you would propose going further offshore. I guess my recommendation is, why don't you do that now?
Any other committee members have comment?
Hey, Tom, I just wanted, the line's 200 feet long,
Yes.
and you got 3 bags, so each bag is 75 feet apart? Do they have to be that far away or you're just checking out the area? You know?
No, there would be more than 3 bags on the 200-foot line. There's 3 bags currently on what we were permitted to do under the town's propagation permit, which is, I mean, maybe it's a 6 or 8 foot line with 3 bags on it. So with the 200-foot line, there'd probably be 30 or 40 of these hanging bags.
It's Heinz again. I wanted to kind of clarify something when Tom Leach and I looked at, you know, offshore and deep. We imagined that if somebody wanted to do something off the bottom, you know, this idea of bottom cages, and it didn't have to be scallops, it could be quahogs, it could be oysters, things that, you know, right, you're off the bottom, but you're nowhere near the surface, and there aren't any lines, and they could be out there year round. As this idea of constructing an area that's in deep water offshore where it doesn't impede with anything on the surface, that's kind of, you know, a dream or a vision where that we could see supporting something like that back in that time, you know. So that's just one I want to clarify is, you know, working offshore in what's considered bottom cages, and that's done in some of the other areas too. So just throwing that out as an idea.
Joe, do you have a comment? Joe Johnson, you're set.
I'm all set.
Are we ready to make a motion to either accept the proposal or to turn it down? We've heard both sides.
I guess the only comment, this is Kent, was that if our 2 town officials have a hard time supporting it, I'm not sure that we as a board have enough expertise to go against that. That if the officials, for their expertise, given it to us, that's very powerful information. So my question, I guess, would be if the applicants want us to vote, or if they want to withdraw it and come back at a later date with a different idea.
Dan Casey has his hand up. Dan?
Mr. Chairman, I think as the Waterways Committee, our purpose is make sure that navigation isn't impeded. So it seems like this would impede navigation. So I don't know. I would be in favor of it.
You're in favor?
I would not be.
Not be in favor. All right. Someone want to make a motion to that effect, or?
Excuse me, it's Hines.
Yes,
I just wanted to say that, you know, these applicants have been diligent in going through the steps and processes of thinking this through and providing information. They could have just gone to the Board of Selectmen if they had chosen to. Now, the Board of Selectmen certainly at first blanch would have asked, you know, have you spoken to Natural Resources and Conservation and Waterways? So going through this kind of, you know, methodical process, which I commend them, and they've answered all the questions to the best of their ability. And as far as town officials, in this case, you know, Hines and John, ultimately what the selectmen, you know, approve or deny is kind of what we will then, you know, will follow through on or accept. Now, we could also be in favor of it completely, and the selectmen could deny it. That's one option. And that they're going to go, I'm sure, in front of conservation too. And I don't think this stops them in any way, regardless of how tonight comes about. But it's just they're kind of dotting their I's and crossing their T's by going to get input through all these, and then I think more than likely it'll go in front of the Board of Selectmen anyway, I think. So I just want to suggest that.
Thank you, Hines. What is your pleasure, gentlemen?
We've lost Mark, but I would say go ahead and vote your mind on it, and we'll just we'll move forward however we have to after that.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? This is Glenn.
Yeah.
I just know, what are you guys using for floats out there? Are they just big polyballs?
Yes, they are big polyballs. Yep.
And then the same in the, like, for the end lines are marked with big polyballs, and you have smaller ones in between, or the same real big polyballs?
Yeah, the end lines and the flotation lines are the big polyballs, and then on the end lines we also have radar reflectors.
All right, so you're talking about like literally 5 or 6 floats.
Yes.
In a straight line.
Yep.
3/4 of a mile off the beach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. I'm just one stakeholder, but I don't see a huge navigational issue with that kind of setup. I mean, I could go there tomorrow and set a 20 trap string there, and I wouldn't have to ask anybody's permission at all. I don't, you know, I mean, the stuff, if it's really 8 feet deep, are there a lot of boats running through there that draw more than 8 feet? And I guess the only other comment is I really like the idea. I'm not gonna, there's not too many times I would argue about more shellfish in the water. That's what we need in this town, more shellfish in the water. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. I think we've discussed it. We've got the pros and cons. We need to move forward either. Oh, I don't know what it is. Whoa.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mute my mic. I'm sorry. I'm working in the shop.
Crash?
No, I'm working in the shop.
Thank you. All right.
No, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not, but I don't know enough about it. That's my only problem. I don't know enough about. I think it's positive, but you know, I don't know enough about it.
Okay, what about Joe and Kent and Dan?
Yeah, I think Glenn made a good point. No different than cog traps or setting anywhere, but unless they want to move forward and just let the selectmen decide.
Would someone like to make a motion, one way or the other? So get this off the table.
Make a motion.
Make
to
a
table it.
motion. This is Kent. I'll take a motion or make a motion that we vote to deny this application as presented. Doesn't mean they can't move forward with everybody else, but for the Waterways Committee, creating a navigational possible hazard without enough information. And why does it have to be in that one particular spot? I just would make a motion to deny this application as presented.
Is there a second?
Sure.
Dan. So Kent made the motion, seconded by Dan Hall. And the motion is to deny the application as presented because of concern about navigational issues and not enough information. Is that the way you want it to read?
Not enough on location. Why that location?
Yeah. They said that, yeah. The location.
Concern about the navigation location.
Yeah.
Yes.
Leah, did you get that? Can you read it back, or do you need clarity?
I think I have it, Tom. So Kent made a motion to deny the application as presented. And there's concern about navigational location.
And location, yeah.
And location.
Okay. Got it. And then seconded by Dan Paul.
Yes. Yes, Dan Hall and Kent made the motion first.
Great.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion is carried. Paul, thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Come back with another one.
Okay, I will. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good idea. It's a great idea.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Next order of business, and any old business? Hearing none. Monthly reports, none from the selectmen. Harbor Master report. I think you've included it, right, John?
I attached my annual report just for you guys to take a look at it if you were interested. And it just kind of summarizes this past year on projects and funding and maritime assistance cases, and it's the standard annual report. So if there's any questions, let me know.
Any questions of the Harbor Master? Hearing none. Heinz, do you have a report that you'd like to present?
I have a report, but if I haven't presented or passed along the town report that I submitted in January for the year 2020, I'll do that again. I have that, and I apologize if I didn't get it and I can send it out tomorrow, and you can through the committee. In terms of natural resources news, last week, Harwich Natural Resources with Harwich, I think it's the Old Timers page or Old Timers group, did some herring run cleaning between Seymour Pond and Hinckley's Pond, and between Long Pond and Hinckley's Pond. So those two stretches are clean and passable. Water's flowing well. We're anticipating fish in another week or two. Today's Wednesday, so Friday I have the AmeriCorps, that's the college group of kids that work on the Cape throughout the year with towns and group projects, and I have them, even though it's going to snow and rain, this has to be scheduled months in advance, and we're going to be working in Herring River to make sure that that section is clear. And then I have a follow-up on Monday with them to do the Skinnicket run to make sure that run is passable in terms of water flow and fish. So even though it may not feel like it the next couple of days, we're getting closer to the first day of spring, and then April, May when the herring start running. And The Division of Marine Fisheries are going to loan the town the electronic fish counter again, which will go in at Depot Street. 2 years ago, we were the largest run in the state, and I'm pretty sure we were the largest last year as well, with number of fish passing through our herring ladder, and that's also a good sign. So just passing that along. Thanks.
Thank you, Heinz. Hearing no other information, entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:23.
Motion.
Dan Hall, second. Is who made the second?
I'll second it. I don't care.
Joe chose it. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Well, meeting is adjourned. Next meeting is scheduled for April 21st. Thank you all and have a good rest of St. Patrick's.
You too. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Evening. Leah?
Good night.
Leah, you still there?
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you get the guests that they were in attendance?
Yes, I did.
Okay, we're all set. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
All right,
Happy
good
St.
night, guys.
Patty's Day. Bye.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
job.
Good night. Thank you, everybody. Good.